Hi, this is Becky Nunn, and I'd like to show you how you can make fun little pendants like this using glass domes and wire wrapping the edge with a little bit of epoxy clay and collage sheet. So what you'll need for this video is epoxy clay. I've already pre-mixed my ball by following the manufacturer's instructions. You'll need a couple of glass domes. I'm going to change how I finish this off up here. I just have a little jump ring. I have some wire, a paintbrush, collage sheet, Nunn design glue, cutters, and a pair of needle nose pliers. The first step is we're going to apply some glue onto the back of the glass dome and then apply the collage sheet onto that image. I like to first see where I have an interesting image or an interesting crop with my collage sheet, because these glass domes, they magnify and they really make it super fun. I like that right there. Using the Nunn design glue, and I have a nice fat brush, I can go ahead and just paint onto the back some of the Nunn design glue. And the reason why I am painting it on the back versus on here and pressing the glass dome onto it is because this back side of the glass is slightly concaved, and if I place it right on top of there, the Nunn design glue gets trapped inside of that curved surface and doesn't dry and doesn't, it'll stay a little bit milky white. So by applying it onto the back side, I'm able then to press my image onto the collage sheet and squish it around, pressing out any of that excess glue. And it is milky white at first, but then in just about 20 minutes it'll dry nice and clear. You want to repeat that because we're doing this a double-sided dome. You're going to repeat that onto the other side, painting the Nunn design glue, pressing it down onto the image, and kind of squishing it around. See how that milky white is in the middle and that there's even a little pocket right there? You want to squish all of that out. I'm applying my other finger on the back side. I'm pressing all of that air out, and therefore the glass will be clear when that glue dries. Once your image is dry, it takes about 20 minutes for that to dry very clear. You can go ahead and trim out so you don't damage the rest of your collage sheet, the pieces that you're working on. My pieces aren't fully dry, so I'm being extra careful. Then go ahead and trim. Using the glass as a template, you're just trimming away that excess. The back side of these glass domes has a little bit of a lip right there, and that optically hides all of these rough edges. So you don't need to worry about being exact on this. Here's the other one. Just cutting right alongside of that edge. And now we have two pieces of glass domes that we're going to sandwich back to back to make a nice little bobbled area. We're going to sandwich it together by using the Nunn Design glue again on the back side, painting a thin coat. Having these pieces joined together. Making sure I have this side up, this side up, and sandwiched together. The next step I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be snaking out some of the clay and putting it along this side edge. Before I do that, I want to go in and put a little bit of glue. So what I'm doing is I'm protecting that side edge of the paper from the epoxy clay, just to make sure that there's not any moisture that gets into that paper and potentially could discolor it. And just paint it all the way around the sides. We're going to come back in and clean that all up off of the glass with our wet wipe. Also, when the glue dries, it's very easy to just scrape it off with your fingernail. Now, just go ahead and let that sit for a little bit until it's nice and dry and the two pieces are cemented together. This piece is still drying, but I have this piece all ready to go. And you can see that once it's fully dry, see how that milkiness is completely gone. Now with your mixed epoxy clay, you have 90 to 120 minutes to work with this clay before it starts to harden. So I still have a lot of time. I'm pulling on the clay to kind of snake out a little bit and thin it out, because I'm going to be wrapping this around this outside edge. I'm pressing it down inside of the piece to kind of sandwich these two pieces together. So with these fingers, I'm pulling on the clay to kind of get it to be all nice and even. And with these, I am pressing it down and pushing it forward, that excess, so that I don't get too many big lumps and bumps. I'm trying to get it nice and as even as I can. Although irregularity and it too can look really cool. If you start to get way too thin and it breaks, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and place it down, snake out a wee bit more, pick it up and blend that seam where it came apart. Blend that seam right there. I'm pushing down and pulling to make that one little seam area nice and blended. Now, if you wanted to, you could even stop right here. I have done really fun projects where I have taken this piece as is and I have texturized it with rubber stamps and painted it with acrylic paint to create a really fun pattern on the outside edge. You can also attach a jump ring up here to make a little bail with the epoxy clay. But on this particular piece, what I'm wanting to try is to create the piece with the wire wrapping. And when working with epoxy clay, I'm constantly cleaning my fingers. This black, it leaves fingerprints all over the glass. And I'm wiping my fingerprints off of the glass because after that 120 minutes, it's gonna harden right on there like cement. So now I have the epoxy clay all around the outside edge, and I've tried to press it down into that crevice to make that edge nice and smooth and even. And I'm ready for wrapping that wire around the outside. In this next step, we're going to be taking some wire and wrapping it around that outside edge and finishing it off. In this one I used the wire, twisted it, and then created like a little bail that I can then attach a jump ring to. But on this, I want to try to just embed this inside like that and wire wrap around it for this piece. I cut off a piece of wire. I'm working with a 24 gauge wire here. This is probably about a foot and a half in dimension. And I may or may not need those, so I'm going to set those aside right now, but they're handy in case I do. I'm going to start on the top, and this clay is still really moist and wet, and I'm not pressing down too hard because I don't want it to get lost inside of the clay. I'm just going to go around and around a couple times, and you know, depending if you want it to look really twisted, and because it's fun to have it maybe be a little bit messy and spontaneous, or you can try to make it nice and straight and level, whatever works for you. Just wrapping that wire right around the outside edge. Something that I should have done now that I'm at this point is I should have threaded that end in there so that I would have two parts. Let's see if I can make this work as is. I'm going to head and thread my jump ring onto the wire now, and I probably will have two passes around again. I would really have liked to have tucked that into the clay, but oh well, maybe it'll be just fine. So now I have a movable bail, which that might be even better. Let's loop it back in through that jump ring again. And let's see if we can bury it down into the epoxy clay someplace over here, that end loop. And bye-bye, it's down in the clay. All right, now I'm going to be using my fingers to kind of press that wire down into the clay. I can come back in and remove if I didn't like, you know, as I've been working with this, it's squishing the clay out onto the glass a little bit more. So I can come back in and push that clay back if I want, and even cover up the wires if I want, but I like that look of the wire, so I might even use a toothpick to go along the outside edges and clean that up. Or I can just use my finger to pull away that excess. I still have that wet wipe handy, so I can go in and clean up that clay. If I do like that there's movement up here and there's not too much tension on there. But you definitely want to make sure that that wire is embedded down into that clay so that it's nice and secure. Kind of fun. I'm still in the process of perfecting this. I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the other side, cleaning off any excess that I don't necessarily want to have there. You can go in with the toothpick and clean it up even more if I wanted to, just to get away all of that excess. Wiping away with the wet wipe. And you can make fun little glass pendants using epoxy clay and wire, and make fun little things like you are seeing here. This is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design, trying something new. Who knows? It kind of looks cool. I think I'd love to see what you guys come up with on this, because I think it has a lot of potential to do something fun. In fact, here's an example of where I didn't wrap any wire around. I just wrapped it with the clay, and now I can go in and I can paint that gold and texturize, like I said. I like how that irregular edge like that kind of looks like it's been soldered. And here's an example of where I took 2 glass domes, pressed the epoxy clay in the black. I actually put an embellishment inside of the clay before I squeezed them together, and then wrapped the outside with the clay to create a pendant like that. Anyway, it's kind of a fun look, and I hope you enjoy playing and creating something totally new and unique of your own. This is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design. It's been fun playing with you. Hope you enjoyed it.